Hello, how you doing? This is George with Truck Driver Nation. So what we're going to go over here is going because people are asking, well, why should I become a freight dispatcher over still just sitting there running around in the truck doing circles? And you know the reasons why you want to come off the truck. And I'm sorry it ain't fancy. I'm not trying to sit here and make a game show. I'm trying to get you the answers to the problem. So I know there's a lot of dispatch services that got the bells and whistles. If you need bells and whistles, you're more than welcome to go to them. I need to get you the answers so we can get you out of the truck and then the freight dispatching. So I know that's the reason I got other people to work for me because everybody says I'm an asshole. I'm too serious. So take it or leave it, because I drove for 24 years. But the point behind this is a simple spreadsheet just to get your mind into the set of why, should you become a freight dispatcher versus running miles on percentages or cents per miles or trying to do a lease purchase, a lease rental. Um, owner operators are in a little bit different group depending on what their investment is on their equipment. You're looking at their fixed cost, their variable cost, and what connections they've made, and basically in their book of business as they've been an owner operator. Because even in lease rental and lease purchase, since we still recruit for carriers, then you're limited to still staying on that particular carrier's MC number, which limits your ability to actually dispatch your own freight. And they might give you an access to the boards, but it's still their MC number. As an owner operator, you're independently to move within the logistics community, whether you're dealing with direct shippers or brokerage, is to be able to generate your freight. Anyways, I want you to look at this. So we'll start right here at the top. This is just a standard solo dry van driver. Okay. This driver is I just went through Craigslist just literally just a minute ago, and I just put dry van, reefer, flatbed, step deck, and I snagged the first one that was on there. So this ain't been categorized or moved around. This is the going freight for what this is 321 2025. Okay. So right now I went on there, I grabbed a dry van. Actually, that's pretty high for a dry van. That company was saying they pay 70 cents per mile. I think that information is skewed. There's probably some bull crap in the back end on the recruiting department that they're probably going to get that driver for something. I've been recruiting for a long time, and even when you're recruiting, there's always something that you find out after you've spent all that time doing the drug test, going to orientation, getting on an airplane flight, going to get your truck, going back home to get your equipment, and then end up having a problem with the company and want to quit. Now you got to figure out how to get all that gear off the truck and get back home. And that's just the things off the top of my head. Okay. But this driver right here is 70 cents per mile. National average is about 2,500 miles per week. That grosses that truck at $6,000 per week. So that means at that given rate, that driver's making $1,750 per week. Now, if you were the dispatcher and you're taking that same truck with those numbers that he's actually making, and you just do it at 10%, that means you're getting $600 per truck. Okay. And that right there at times 7 trucks, which you should easily be able to handle these 7 trucks because I mainly only teach truck drivers. That puts you at $4,200 a week if you maintain the minimum of that $6,000 per week. Okay. Now you're starting to see why I'm telling you, why are you driving trucks? Why do you think I came out of trucks? It just wasn't my hatred for chains, driving at night, bad weather, crappy food, crappy attitudes, crappy dispatchers. There was a reason why I made this choice to make this transition. Okay, so let's go to the next one. This is going to be for solo reefer driver. This company pays 65 cents per mile. Average is 2,500 miles per week. That put his overall gross revenue for that truck at $6,500. So that driver is making about $1,625 per mile. I mean, per week. Now, the thing I'm trying to show you, you see the difference between dry van and reefer? That usually the reefer makes more than the dry van. The way the price range usually goes, it goes dry van, reefer, flatbed, and step tech. So as you start from dry van going up, it becomes more specialized and you're making more money by increasing your skill set and your overall physical, your workload physically. Because remember, you're driving a truck. Let's say you drove for 10 hours or 11 hours. Now you got to get out of the truck and start undoing straps and rolling tarps up and everything after you've been sitting there and you wonder why your body gets injured. You tell me. Anyways, for that given truck right there, 6,500, he made $1,625. Now remember, there's a big likelihood that for all these drivers, they're going to possibly be 1099. These companies are not wanting to pay you for the services. I mean, pulling out taxes. Very few of them are W-2. Okay. And if they are, go and take about 40% or whatever you figure your tax ratio is off of that money. And that's your actual bring home. Okay. That's the reason everybody went to 1099. So everybody's doing W-9s, so how that helps them, I don't know. But if we took that same reefer trailer with a solo driver at that same rate, just like we did before for $650, and we did 7 of these trucks, now we're making, give or take, somewhere around $4,550. Now, I want to hold up a second here. I want to take a quick look at something because something about that don't feel right. And so when you're looking at numbers, you just get that feeling because, yeah, that's right. Okay, because it was his rate of pay that changed. So at 65 cents, hold on, give me a second. I just threw this together. So it ain't like I did homework on it before I got to it because I needed to show you guys. So that's times 0.65 cents a mile. That's $1,625. Okay, that is what he made. So if we do that, that is $650 per truck, 650. Yeah, that's right. So that's times 7 units. Yeah, that's $4,550 if you maintain that rate. Okay, so that means you got that truck's got to pull $6,500 in every week. Okay. Now, when I teach in the dispatch course, it's not just what you're making per truck, but how to ensure that you're getting those numbers. You can't just sit around and look at load boards like, okay, well, load board's the answer. Well, you probably don't need to be doing trucking. If you can't deal with direct shippers, you got a problem. And I understand people say, oh, well, you can't deal with direct shippers because you only got an MC number as a carrier. Well, guess what? They can all kiss my redneck ass because the problem is I've got an MC number as an actual freight agent through one of the owner operators that's over the road where he hasn't been using his brokerage authority and he gave me access to it. So if you see that you want to come on the freight agent side, I can easily get you signed on there. But the first thing you have to do if you're going to deal with me at Truck Driver Nation, you've got to learn to dispatch. If you can't dispatch and understand the drivers, how am I going to be able to let you do the ability to actually get direct shippers, put that freight on the board, and still understand the dispatcher that's going to be dealing with drivers? Because lots of times those dispatchers never have been truck drivers. Okay. So they're just pulling freight off the board. They're getting paid whatever they get paid per week from that carrier, and they could care less. That's the reason you suffer so much as a truck driver out there on the road. But anyways, let's move along. So the next one, what we're going to look at is we're going to look as a reefer team. The reason I do reefer only, the only reefer on team is because when you're dealing in trucking, you're dealing with perishable goods when it comes to refrigerated trailers. So usually they like having a team to get that freight from A to B because as soon as that freight goes, whether you cooled your trailer down correctly or not, that food's on a time schedule for longevity. So it's now it's out of that chamber or whatever, however they store that product, unless it's coming straight out of the fields and they're cooling it and then they're shooting it to the grocer. So in this event, obviously this is going to be one of the few examples where I just show you this is the reason they want teams on those trucks. So if you run a team, I've run a lot harder than all these, by the way. So you can absolutely run harder, and they want you to run like a dog. But now since ELD has came out, it really strangled hold some of that back, right? So for this team, they're paying this team, and this is all came off Craigslist, 70 cents per mile. So they're saying the average right there for this team right here is going to be 5,000 miles per week. Probably going to be over that, but we're just using this as just a platform to translate the information so you understand why you need to be a freight dispatcher. So we're saying that on that week, that truck right there grossed $7,000. Okay. Now, if they can maintain this, so we do 5,000 miles times 70 cents a mile, and that equals to $3,500. Now, this is going to be the part that really whoops your ass. So if we take that right there, that $3,500, now we got 2 drivers. Now, I wasn't going to show you this. I'm showing you the percentages on the actual what you're making as a freight dispatcher, but I want to show you this. And most people are in line to themselves about it. To run that at that miles for that gross revenue is 70 cents per mile. They're only making $1,750 a piece. So you laid in the back of that bunk and let your body be beat to death trying to sleep. I'm gonna be straight with you. When I drove teams with one of my friends, I used to get drunk. We'd take turns. As soon as we got done driving, we would literally use Sailor's Jerry because we could get a small pint and throw the rest of it out the window because we wouldn't be so pissed off we were wasting money. But we would sit there and get drunk, and you can literally ask me. I used to pass out in the driver's passenger seat. That would be fun at your driver's seat, right? In the passenger seat, so I could lay down in the back and have my body thrown around like a damn piece of popcorn back there until it was my turn to take over. So I get up, make sure my head's straight, make sure I'm in the game, because we're not, you're not getting sloshed drunk. You're just getting enough because you're already tired. So that right there would shut me down good enough that I'd be ready to go to sleep. So that's the whole thing. When you're driving teams, you think you're making all this progress about making higher gross revenues. In reality, you're not. Okay. And anybody else want to give me the math, please? This is going to be on YouTube. Please make the contact with me and prove me wrong on any of this information. I'm up for the challenge. I've been up for the challenge for almost 30 years. So come on, bring it on. I would love to hear what you got to say on these. So, because the thing is, I'm here to benefit you as truck driver. Let's not confuse it. I'm here to combat with nobody because I'm a truck driver and you know how truckers used to be when we had CBs. But I'm here to get you where you understand what is our problem. The truck driver's the last one to get any meat off the bone. Quit letting everybody use you. You deserve better. Your family deserves better. Okay. And I'm sorry I'm so passionate about it, but I had 24 years of my life ripped away because I kept believing it was going to get better. I was going to do better. I own trucks. I mean, I ran for people. I did car hauling. Oh, I've done it all. And it never got better. Okay. And wasn't trying to rule the world, but I was just trying to make a living for myself. And versus the cost of living, even back before any COVID even showed up, it was hard, still hard. So, anyways, that's what you're looking at as a team. Now, if you were running this team at that same rate for the same amount of miles, okay, and everything, that right there would give you basically, because you would actually make out of the 10%, because if people have one truck, I'm charging you 10%. But don't feel bad because look, the carriers are charging me anywhere from 15% up to 28%. Okay. And they're not giving that much more. If the owner operators would look at what they're really giving them, they would handle their business themselves. But the problem is, as an owner operator, sometimes you can't do that because you're dependent on a dispatcher to give you the money. If you had a good dispatcher that would get you the revenue that you actually can make, then you could afford to be on your own bills and everything. And you wouldn't have to lean on a company that they're doing mass numbers and they're just leeching you because you have no other choice. You bought the truck. Now you don't want to lose your equipment. You know how hard you work to save that deposit or manage to work a deal with somebody to get that tractor. Then you're probably even renting a trailer. You probably don't even own the trailer. I know it's a sad situation, but this is the truth about trucking. So unless you got into some special niche with freight and something like that, you're in the hole. I mean, that's the truth of the life. But anyways, so if you're doing that at 10%, because we're basically saying you're doing one truck at a time, I charge 10% if you got one truck. So at that right there, then you're making $4,900 a week. If you had 7 trucks, now we're assuming that all these are going to either be just straight drive around, straight reefer, whatever. We're not assuming that you got a mix of trailers. Okay. So obviously the math would turn out differently. Now, the next one we're going to look at is step deck. This company right here on Craigslist offered 72 cents per mile. So they're saying the national average is 20, and I looked at national averages of what trucks are doing right now on freight. So national average for step deck, remember step deck is going to be over dimensional. So that means it can be over height, over width. Those different things are going to change these numbers because you get paid more for those different circumstances because it's over width. Now you're having to flag it or whatever. It may, if it's a permanent load and all these things, so they add up. I mean, some step decks actually have to have an escort. Not usually. Most people keep it within that boundaries. If it gets to that point, then you're looking at just putting it on RGN because they got all the stuff on there to do that as well, just depending on the factors behind what that product is. So at 72 cents a mile, they're saying the national average is $2,600. And they're saying, well, okay, that generates $7,500 gross revenue per week. So that step deck driver at that 72 cents. Now, sometimes they do this on percentage. They might give you 30%. The highest I've ever gotten on anything I specialize, like car hauling, was 32%. But that always to make sure you can't just damage the cars. But anyways, let's get back to this. For the step deck, that's $1,872 a week that driver is making. If you were the dispatcher for these step decks, okay, at $750, now you're making $5,250 based on 7 trucks at this given rate. And you can do this. Okay. Actually, these numbers for step deck actually should be higher than this. I'm just going to leave it at that. This is all their averages. Me as a dispatcher, my job is to make that look like crap. Okay. My job is to bring that up because I only do step decks. Okay. Now, all 7 of my trucks I dispatch right now, all step decks. I don't do nothing else. If you ain't got a step deck, I can't work with you because I even during the off season, I can still get you stuff. Now, if you want to swap it out for a reefer, whatever dry van or whatever season you think is going to be best for you, then swap it out. And I'll cover you during that window because I understand that you're swapping out because you figure you're going to do better than this because you might have contacts as well. I don't just work on my own contacts. If you're the owner operator I'm dispatching for, well, let me know what you got. My job is to be your assistant to maximize your gross revenue as an owner operator. But let's move on to the last one. The last one's going to be flatbed. And there's a lot of flatbeds out there. Now, this one right here, they're saying that they're going to pay the exact same rate as a step deck. Give or take, it's still about the right because, the problem with step deck is, I mean, the with flatbed is, it really seems like you have to tarp a lot more. Unless you've got a Conestoga where you can put it in there and it fits within that frame where those curtains slide up, then you'll be okay. But just don't remember, I don't know why I'm telling you this. This is just notes for people that don't know. On those Conestogas, you have to be careful. You don't want to start bending the framing on those Conestogas or let those forklifts start hitting your railings and stuff. Because all those railings on the outside stuff, they're not just for looks. That's where you're doing your securement in. And if they're damaging stuff, DOT will violate that. Okay, because that's what's keeping it from ending up in the windshield of a van with a whole load of church kids. So at this given rate, so they're saying the average mileage on this is going to be about 2,600 miles as well. And so I'm trying not to jump around, but at 72 cents a mile, 2,600 miles, that gross revenue for that truck for that week is $7,300. It's showing a little bit low. Sometimes flatbed can beat step deck, but step deck's usually easier because you ain't got to do a lot of tarping. Most of it's going to a lot of equipment type stuff, but you can still put flatbed loads on a step deck. Okay. The only reason you can't really put a lot of step deck loads on flatbeds is because flatbed trailer is higher. And so now, you've got to 13.6, which in car hauling, we basically go to 14 foot 2 inches and squeeze it under every bridge there is because the vehicles are so big these days. But anyways, that gives you a gross of 7,300. So that driver, based on that same rate, is making the same as a step deck on this scenario at $1,872. So with that given rate, based on the percentages, because remember it's a little bit lower, then you're going to only, if you have 7 trucks, then you're going to have $5,110 a week you're making. Okay. Now, these numbers being said, let me give you the actual numbers that I make. I make anywhere $3,300. Like say, because remember, some of my drivers go home, or some people got a late start, or some people are just drag ass dog tired. Remember, they're truck drivers. They work hard. If you think that we just sit in that damn seat and just listen to the radio, or for those that want to watch their phone, which you would definitely do some heavy prison time now. They're not playing around about that. Take your risk if you want. I'm just throwing that warning out there like anybody else would if they're in trucking. Because don't kill me in my truck if I was out there on the road by running across the lines and shoving me off in the ditch and we happen to be, and somewhere there's high terrain, western slope, running out 70 past Colorado, Denver and stuff. But the point being is, when you're actually looking at what I'm actually making, I make between 3,300 and give or take about 4,500. Depends on how my week turned out with that set of trucks that I'm running. I run with the same guys. Now, if I start seeing one slacking off, well, you're really starting to hurt me. So I got to find out what's going on with you. Okay. If you feel like you just need to be out of trucking for a while, you want to do something a while, I do get people that leave because I stay on them. That's my job. I got 7 trucks. These 7 trucks is where I make my money. Can you do more trucks than this? Yes. Can you still do less trucks than this? Of course. But, the one question if I've been asked, can I dispatch trucks from whatever time and still work a 9 to 5 because they want to work a regular job? That don't make sense because the brokers are 9 to 5 people too. And depending on the time zone that you're in the United States, because remember, we got 3 or 4 time zones based on the time of year, then you probably can't. So if you're in Pacific time, are you going to be up and ready to go, let's say at 3 o'clock in the morning? Because you don't need to be waking up. You need to be working. Anybody that can't be on that clock at that given time, full-fledged, awake and going, and on that board being competitive, you're going to miss all the good freight. You're going to be in the middle of the day, knick-knacking, looking for freight, talking to brokers and hoping something pops up. And remember, now that Nat1's changed their layout, everybody can click real quick and everybody's down on that broker instantly. It's just straight from Nat1. As soon as the alert comes up, I mean, you can post your truck and see maybe somebody might call you and say, hey, you got a truck, post it for X location. Is it still available? But they're going to be looking at the boards the same way and realize that, hey, there's no freight and a piss load of trucks sitting there, so that freight price is going to go down. Okay. It's also the reverse. That's the reason you want the morning. There's more freight, less trucks actually dealing in the market. So if you're not the early bird, then you're not going to get no worm. Okay. So then the freight price goes up. You can negotiate and get that freight price up. Now, obviously, if it doesn't meet the needs of your owner operator, why would you do that to that man? Okay. He's got responsibility. It's not a big company taking care of those trucks. And trust me, those big companies suffer just as much because I was in the office and when they start arguing, everything in argument in the United States has to do over money, almost all of them. Okay. So if you start seeing the heat come down and they're shoving each other around, not in the physical sense, but in the overall business sense, you got a problem. Okay. We got 70 trucks sitting out there on the yard. Do you know how much that is a day, especially if you're doing a lease rental or lease purchase? So, as a recruiter, they need people like me because we're getting drivers in there. But on the other hand, I got where it's hard for me to sit there and tell people that you got this opportunity, like I said, for lease rental, lease purchase, when only 1% of all those drivers actually get their truck. 1%. That's one man out of 100 that beat himself to death to buy that truck. Okay, your best route, if you want to buy these trucks, you've got to do it the regular conventional way of going through a finance company that ain't some whatever company that's charging you 32%. You know what I mean? You got to go through somebody. If you ain't got the credit, then you need to find somebody that believes in you, that does have the credit, that can co-sign you and get that interest rate down, or have it go into their name until you get it paid off. And then, let them turn it over because you got insurance and stuff. So if you crash your truck and go out in the flame of glory, at least everybody's covered on insurance. Okay. But this right here chart, this is just, I don't know if I'm gonna post this on the front of the page, but this right here is just a simple breakdown that I made to give a face to the actual situation of why to quit driving trucks and to transition over into being a freight dispatcher. Okay, because I got a lot of people like, well, yeah, I'd love to do it. I'd love to do it. If you can't look at these numbers and see the actual what you're actually making as a freight dispatcher, if you go drive that truck, let's do this real quick. So if you're going to go drive that truck, let's say we'll do drive van. So we're saying 7 trucks, $4,200. Okay. So you got $4,200 and then you're going to minus it. So you can actually see the math. That's the reason I'm doing it on here on the calculator. Minus that 1,750. That equals to $2,450 that you're letting go. And all you're doing is talking to fellow truck drivers, getting them the freight that they need for their trucks. 7 trucks is all you're doing. Okay. All the leads to get these owner operators, we provide all these leads. Okay. If you got a 5 to 10% conversion rate, okay, 5 to 10%, let's say use the number 100. So 5 to 10%, what is that? Out of 100, 5 or 10 people that convert, that they're owner operators, and they convert over into your company because we help you build your own company. I don't want to run your company and I don't want to be nobody's boss. So let's not confuse this. Because if I mess something up, it's messing me up. It's not messing you up. I just give you everything I know because I've been in logistics so long. But in the event that you do 100 people, then you should get somewhere between 5 and 10 people that you got. You only need 7. Okay. And you need them all to be owner operators. And I've got everything in my platform on what I actually expect for my dispatch service for me to actually dispatch for them. You can do yours any which way you want. I teach you how it's all run, what documentation is needed, what's required by FMCSA, and what's required to actually make your business function with load boards, dispatching brokerage, direct shippers, type of stuff. So, but anyways, I hope this gives you some insight on why you should definitely cough up the ghost kind of thing and get out of that truck and get yourself to where you're at home with your family. You ain't got to be at home. Go to a coffee shop. Damn, live life. I mean, you've been sitting in that prison cell on 18 wheels, and I've tore up so much stuff on those dashes, kicking stuff because I felt like I was just squeezed in. There was no escape. Okay. Because you can't go nowhere. You're sitting in a gas station with a fast food restaurant in it, and that is your life. Okay. What to do? I get to go take a shower. That should be the event of the day. You don't exercise because you can't get out and exercise. One, some idiot will come through there with an 18-wheeler and run you over because his head is la la land. He's zoned out because he's been on the road. He's got bug-eyed. That's what I call it because I used to come off the road bug-eyed. I was like, oh my gosh. And then, you know how it feels. You're standing next to the gas pump. If you really ran hard, you can feel the blood pumping in your neck because you've been sitting on your butt so long driving that truck. That's not good. Okay. But anyways, the point being, the money itself, you can make it in dispatching. No reason. Everybody's doing it every day. Okay. And people say, oh, well, it's gonna be, you're gonna flood out the market with dispatchers. How am I gonna flood out the market with dispatchers? Okay, trucking never will stop. There's no way to flood out the market with dispatchers. Dispatchers come in the market and go out of the market just like truck drivers. But thing is, as a truck driver, you're going to respect other truck drivers because you already know what they're dealing with. So I hope that throws some light. I'm not trying to preach and I'm not trying to sell you. I'm just giving you the facts from one truck driver to the next. And if you're not in logistics, I know I point everything towards truck drivers. You're not logistics. Just take what I said verbatim because this is truck driver to truck driver kind of thing. Because I'm seeing a lot of issues where the drivers are not wrapping their head around, well, what makes this dispatching so much better? Because if you go to work for a company, they're going to give you very little of this 10%. Even if they're charging 20%, 25%, they're giving you very little. You're going to end up doing a no compete and no non-disclosure on everything that you're doing with that company, and they're going to throw extra work on you, which you should have never had to do as a freight dispatcher. So if you want to work for a company, go that route. I would 100%, I'm totally against it. You can do this right here yourself and help fellow truck drivers and get it done. And if you have any problems, you got me. I'm here to tell you, you give me a call, I can tell you exactly what I would do in that given situation. As long as you give me the details correctly, don't hold back. If you screwed up, tell me what you did if that happened, but we can get it back on track. Everything's fixable. You are a problem solver as a freight dispatcher. Okay. We provide a service. We don't make nothing. We just provide a service to help truck drivers that are out there on the road maximize that gross revenue so they're not out there just running circles for free either. Those trucks cost a lot of money, even just to sit there and idle. But anyways, if you have any questions about any of this, please give me a holler. Make sure to visit truckdrivernation.com for in-depth understanding of our course, our freight dispatch service, and any other services that we have that we can provide to you, including back office assistance. We got access to outsourcing, cheap help, $200 to $500 a month. They're all professionals. They've dealt with American clients. They're all Filipino because I only deal with Filipinos because my wife is Filipino. So they're a great asset for you to be able to communicate with. And you might have to do a little bit of training, but for what you're paying, they're there on the spot. Just because they're a lot less, don't mean the quality of their work is less. It's not. But anyways, you can interview as many as you want and say who you want and how you want it. But anyways, give us a holler. The phone number is on the contact information inside Truck Driver Nation. The number is going to be 210-343-1118, 210-343-1118. But anyways, I hope this helped, and I hope it didn't come across too rude or aggressive, but that's what you get when you get somebody that's been a truck driver so long. It's not that we intentionally are that way. It's just if you know what we were dealing with on the road when we come off, some of us, this is what we turn out like. So anyways, appreciate your time. Hope everybody enjoyed the information. I hope you learned something, and I look forward to hearing from you. Have a blessed day. If you're out there on the road, please be safe. Thank you again.